So today's episode is going to be a bit different.
Wow.
Big question.
Now you're asking. I needed a bit of a change.
A bit more saucy stuff to the end.
The big question, obviously, are you single?
Comes down to those basics, getting very strong in those big compound movements. I'm not going to say those names because I'm not sure if that bans the video.
Welcome to episode 4 of Walking the Walk with 3T Fitness. So today's episode is going to be a bit different. You're going to find a little bit more about the man behind 3T Fitness. So we're going to have a little bit of sort of Q&A. I've got my man Nikhil behind the camera. He's going to throw a few questions across. And we're going to have almost like a bit of an interview sort of process going on. We'll leave a little bit more saucy stuff to the end. So make sure you watch the whole way through. This one's going to be a funny one.
So, what made you get into fitness?
Wow.
Big question.
Now you're asking. So, someone actually asked me this question the other day, and I mean, I've always massively been into sports. I was always climbing out of trees as a youngster. I was always sort of competitive as a youngster as well. You know, if there was a race, if there was a fight, if there was a whatever, name it, cross country, I was there. So I guess, yeah, I've just always been into it. And I got to a point in life where, you know, I've been in and out of a few jobs, but not necessarily found something that I enjoyed. And I thought, you know what, I love sport, I love fitness, can we make a career in it, you know? So, and here we are today.
If you want an online coach in the fitness industry, what would you be doing?
If I wasn't an online coach, well, I'd like to say a footballer, but but actually, although I got to a very good level as a youngster playing football, I don't think I was quite good enough to go the full way. Hence why I came out of it. Bit of a side tangent, my brother actually made a professional footballer, so he went one better than me. They always say the first sibling is the runt of the family. So yeah, my brother went one further. So if I wasn't an online coach, what would I be? I don't know if I can answer that. Yeah. I literally cannot see myself doing anything, doing anything different. It's my passion, it's what I enjoy doing. It gets me up in the morning. I feel it's what I'm very qualified to do. I don't know, man. Bin man?
Who would you say you look up to, if anyone?
You've got the obvious answers out there. You know, people like Muhammad Ali, who obviously crossed barriers, not just with, you know, his boxing, but I think it's fair to say that he brought everyone together. You know what I mean? Like, you'd have whatever colour, creed or age or sex, you know, coming together and watching his fights, and he just, you know, I think he's quite an important person in history. And obviously, you know, people within my field, people who have, you know, walked my path and a bit maybe further on. Again, Mark Coles was someone I always refer to because he was actually the person who called me out. Yeah, I'll tell this story very quickly. So I went to one of his seminars, business seminar, and I asked him the question, how do I become better at what I do? How do I become one of the best coaches out there to help people transform their lives, their health, their fitness? And he said to me, well, have you taken yourself through it? Have you taken yourself through the process of transformation? Have you taken your body to a point where you've gone through some real adversity? I said, yeah, you know, I've gone through some diets leading up to holidays and whatnot. And he was like, no, I'd argue you haven't. Just literally called me out like that, and I was like, whoa.
Wow. And here we are.
Yeah. And then literally the next week, it might have even been sooner than that, I'd set up a conversation with another coach who that I'd, you know, seen in the industry doing some good things. I booked a photo shoot to give me that deadline to push towards, and we were on our way to complete my first photo shoot preparation in 2018. So yeah, it really sort of hit home. So I'd say him. You know, he's definitely to the point. There's no sort of fluff, should we say, around his teachings.
So he's a mentor, or is he an online coach?
I would say one of my mentors, yeah, and I've had several. Yeah, I think that's also something really important. Yeah, having mentors in life is really key.
How was that for you, and what do you think you took away from it? From an outside perspective, it's obviously helped you. 3T Fitness is launched from that. You've got all these things that have come out of it, but for yourself, what do you think? Did you struggle at all?
Yeah, so reflecting on the lockdowns, I think during the first one I was actually quite ill at the start of it. So I had that double whammy of not only being isolated and locked down as everyone was, but I was also ill. So it was a really tough time, obviously, as it was for everyone. But it gave me some really good reflection time. I'd come to a bit of a crossroads with my employed work. I felt like I needed a bit of a change, and this almost forced me into making that decision. I was no longer feeling passionate about my work. I felt like I'd sort of outgrown the place I was working in, and I just wasn't excited to wake up, you know, for probably for a longer period of time than I'd like to admit, actually. So although it was a challenging period of time, it actually gave me breathing time to think, do you know, what do I want to do now? I'm feeling a little bit suffocated, feeling a little bit like I'm not moving forward anymore. So although it was a challenging time, it was a great time for me, actually, because it was needed. And you know, during that time I decided, do you know what, I'm gonna give this a shot. I'm gonna take this thing off on my own now. I feel like I've put in the hard yards with regards to employment. I want to run my own gig. I still want to be in fitness because I love that, but I don't want the red tape. I don't want the red tape of a corporation of employment say, no, T, you can't do that. Actually, no, I want to do this. Hence, I took things off my own, started building things in the background throughout furlough. And then I think it was after sort of lockdown 1 that I started the business. You know, I went fully in. Obviously, came out of employment, and yeah, I would say the last 18 months have been huge.
Big.
Yeah, like the growth I can see in myself. It's sometimes hard to reflect on that and be insightful about that at times. Maybe at other times people can actually see it in you rather than you see it in yourself. But actually, when I reflect on it, I feel there's been some massive growth, and I am very thankful for it.
The big question, obviously, are you single?
Yeah. Currently I am. I mean, with everything that's going on at the minute, not so much time.
Busy, man.
Yeah. But having said that, you know, if something happened organically and it was right, I wouldn't be against it. But yeah, just with everything going on at the minute, you know, opportunities are few and far between. Let's say I'm so invested in what we're doing at the minute. Turn this around. So invested in what we're doing at the minute. Yeah, maybe the possibility of that occurring organically is not as much.
Be for the right person, right time.
Yeah, absolutely. Obviously getting on a little bit now. 35 years old. You guys might be surprised with that.
Yeah, I know I am.
Yeah, so I'm getting to that period of my life where I'm like, do you know what, it would be nice to find someone who's, you know, I can share some time with and then grow with, you know. So
Do you drink? Do you stay away? Do you smoke? Any of that?
so we're talking about vices right now.
Yeah.
What extra vices have I got? I would say Waitrose is a vice of mine. I literally spend an extra mortgage on Waitrose. So as I spoke to earlier,
I'm a big fan of food, good quality food. And although you know, my meals are kind of basic at the minute, it's good ingredients, so it's good whole foods and it's good quality food. So I definitely say good food is a bit of advice. I'm not a huge drinker. I do like the odd vino with a nice meal, glass of red with dinner. If I'm out with the boys, I might every so often go in a bit harder, but this is few and far between now. Again, you know, 35. So those harsh nights don't feel so good the next morning any longer. So they're few and far between. And then, yeah, I don't do drugs. That's not to say that I wouldn't potentially consider one or two things that maybe take your mindset, or let's say, like, make you look a bit deeper. I'm not going to say those names because I'm not sure if that bans the video.
What is your ideal or perfect date?
Oh, good question. I would say it would...
Can't be a chess session.
Yeah, partner Jim says. I would say it would start off with, you know, a nice drink, cocktail somewhere, maybe in a nice little bar, maybe somewhere in London, and then it'd be onto a really nice restaurant. I do like a nice setting for a restaurant, so maybe some fine dining somewhere, and then on to maybe some drinks and maybe a bit of a dance afterwards.
Bit of a dance.
Bit of a dance. Like a bit of a dance. I've been known to dance. And then I guess see where the night takes us from there, right? A little bit of spontaneity in there as well.
So you're quite family orientated?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, very close to my immediate family, mum, brother, sister. I'm around there, you know, every other weekend. So I see a lot of those guys. So I'd say I've got a pretty good relationship with all of those guys. Pretty close to my brother as well, although sometimes I can go a little bit off, you know, off the radar, just because work gets on top, and obviously we've all got stuff going on, and invariably as you get older, it's more difficult to stay connected, I think, and I have to remind myself sometimes to pull myself back in and reach out, you know, because it's so easy to just leave that, you know, too long. So
I think you've got quite a balanced life at the minute, or
balance. That is one, isn't it? Since, I mean, obviously we've been running the new business now for the last 18 months, and with that there is an element of unbalance because we're pushing things and we're trying to push the ladder, right? So I think whenever you're trying to push something, there's always going to be an element of unbalance. So I'd say might say I'm a little bit unbalanced at the minute. I'm probably pushing, you know, more of my efforts towards the business at the minute, but I think sometimes you need to do that, you know, to move forward with things.
So what would be your advice for someone that's new to the gym, just starting out, maybe a bit intimidated to go to the gym, a bit scared? What would you suggest for someone like that?
So firstly, you don't have to go to the gym to make progress, and potentially you could consider just, you know, starting off from home. Many of my clients, when I started working with people online, trained from home. They had just some simple dumbbells and bands, and that's more than enough to get going. I think more than anything, just make a start initially, and obviously if you want some more bespoke help in the future, you could look at potentially coaching to help out with that, either personal training or online coaching, you know, to speed that up for yourself. But initially, I think just get started, and you don't have to potentially be in the gym to do that.
And were you naturally someone that was quite gifted in terms of genetics? Did you have a good build, a good start, or what were those first few years like for you?
So, interestingly enough, all the way up to about 16, I was actually very, very slight. I was more of a runner than anything, and my build was very slight. Moved over to Oxford as I was playing professional football at the time, and we were put into a strength and conditioning program. And for 2 years, my love of resistance training grew, and I was probably in the gym more than I needed to be, in actual fact, for football. Fast forward 2 years, I came back home and everyone was astonished with the size that I'd put on over 2 years. So, you know, from a guy who wasn't necessarily genetically gifted in terms of musculature, I made a huge difference in those 2 years. So, you know, definitely, you know, everyone can make a real positive impact on their, you know, their physique if they've got consistent resistance training in there, and obviously they're ticking many of the boxes.
If you could go back 10, 5, even more years and let your younger self know a bit of advice or change anything, would you? Do you have any regrets in terms of training, or would you let it go the way it did?
I think, you know, often we learn when we make mistakes. So in order for me to be where I am today, I had to go through those potential mistakes from back then. But if I was, you know, looking back at my previous self and had the ability to say, no, take this direction because it's going to get you there quicker, would I have changed anything? I would say potentially what I would have said to myself is, in those initial years, just focus on getting stronger. Concentrate on the basics, the foundations that are really going to provide the foundation for your physique, i.e. big compound movements like deadlifts, like squats, you know, like big pulling movements like pull-ups and rows, like dips, that are really going to form the basis of your physique. You probably don't want to be in there doing fluff work like bicep curls and tricep extensions. However, that stuff's fun as well, so I maybe wouldn't have said that to myself, because that stuff was fun. It was fun to do that. But if we're looking to get to somewhere as quickly as possible, then maybe that's the advice I would have given. And eat your damn protein.
Which exercises in the gym do you see people do the most that, in your opinion, aren't very effective, and what would you replace those exercises with?
We know this day and age, the booty for women is an area that they're looking to develop quite often. Again, it comes down to those basics, getting very strong in those big compound movements, like you know, deep lunges, split squats, you know, deep leg presses, glute bridges. Getting very strong in those movements is going to yield far greater results than little booty pops with bands and, you know, little leg movements to the side. Focus on those bigger movements and you're going to get a lot more, you know, bang for your buck. I think another thing to keep in mind is not being married to certain movements which you hear about being super effective, but maybe not be right for you. So for example, a back squat, yes, it's a great exercise if you are built and set up to be able to squat well. However, it could be a terrible exercise for you if you haven't got the mobility for it, your coordination is not there as yet, and you've not got any ability to you know, put any intensity into the exercise. And a better exercise to develop your legs could be a leg press for you, for example, if you're quite new to training. So I think that's worth mentioning. There's obviously lots of variants of exercises that you can do to get the best out of them. For example, if we're looking at a hinge-based movement, quite often the deadlift from the floor is an exercise that can be butchered, for want of a better word. Many people struggle with that exercise, they haven't got the ability to get into the exercise, it's very easy to get that wrong. So maybe a better variant in this situation would be a Romanian deadlift. I personally prefer that. I feel more comfortable in that movement. You probably can't lift as much load in a Romanian deadlift as well, potentially, so it may keep you safer. So I think things like that as well is really important to consider. Don't be married to movements. A couple of other movements that are very effective if done correctly, however, if you do it in another way, it can be potentially dangerous, is the lat pull down behind the back, behind the neck, or the shoulder press behind the neck. I'm not saying it's not possible to do these movements safely, but quite often people haven't got the mobility or the ability to implement that exercise safely. So a much safer way of doing things is doing the lat pull down simply at the front of the body, and the shoulder press again, front of the body. And this just puts your shoulder in a bit more of a safer position rather than putting it all the way back here into this sort of unnatural place, which is going to place a lot more sort of potentially unnecessary tension on the shoulder, which could cause an injury, let's say.
What would you say to someone that might be a bit hesitant to get a coach or or a face-to-face PT? I know a lot of people may think they need to be in certain shape, they might be intimidated.
So always do your due diligence. You know, we were having conversations earlier about the fact that word of mouth is brilliant. If you've got a strong referral, strong recommendation with someone you know, you've got a great, you know, this person's got a great result with them, that's usually a very, very good sign. Look at that coach and see if they've got you know, a clear history of proven results that you can resonate with. You do those two things as well as having a conversation with that person, either over the phone or a Zoom. You know, you've got to get on with the person at the end of the day as well. If you're gonna work with someone as a coach, you've got to be able to be on the same sort of you know, hymn sheet, as it were. So do those three things, do due diligence, recommendation or referrals are great, and make sure you have a conversation with them. So there was once a term coined with regard to the parallel dip, which is what we're going to be doing next, and that was the parallel dip, especially with a chest emphasis, is the equivalent to a back squat. So it's like the back squat for the upper body. For me, it hits absolutely everything: chest, front delts, triceps. It's just an exercise I really enjoy, works well with my mechanics. It's an exercise that I can really overload. So I would probably say it's the parallel dip.